Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Workforce Rewired podcast. I'm Dr. Cheryl Richards with Catapult, and I have a very fun guest today on our podcast, an old friend, Kellie Grutko, who is the founder of a company called Purposeful Pivot. Kellie and I are going to have a great conversation today around high performers in the organization. So, Kellie, thanks for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. So we talk a lot about talent development and people chasing success. And our topic today is success isn't the finish line, why your highest performers may be the most at risk. So I want to start with addressing the topic itself and say a lot of us spend decades chasing success, but you seem to think that success isn't actually the finish line. What do you mean by that?
I think you really shouldn't stop developing employees as they start getting in the ranks and they're performing highly. Sometimes the growth stops there and you just treat them as the role that keeps performing. But in actuality, they want to grow and develop just as much as your early talent. And so I don't want those folks to get ignored. They still want to grow and to reinvent themselves and align with their jobs. So I'm afraid that if you just treat them, it's like they're done, they're successful, and you don't take care of them anymore, that's when they start to look elsewhere. So I think you just need to protect those high performers.
I think that's a really good point. I think about my own career. I always had metrics along the way, and I would achieve one, and then I would change the goalpost and make it a new goalpost. And then that led to additional professional development or mentoring or executive coaching. I think a lot of us feel like there's this imposter syndrome once you reach a certain place in your career. Like, have I really reached it all? Is there something still missing there? Do you see that in your practice? High performers who work really hard and then feel like something's still missing?
I think a lot of times you just go on autopilot, right? You do the things you're supposed to do. You go to college, you get a job, you work your way up the ladder, and you just keep going. And sometimes you just don't stop along the way to think about really what you're doing. Are you doing what you want to do? Are you growing? And a lot of times people just do what society tells them they should do, right? Instead of what they want to do. And I think they fall trap into that. And then they get to a point where they look and they're like, okay, well, gosh, I got my success. Met all my goals. What do I do now? And then that's where they start to get lost and they drift.
Well, and you have some personal experience, right? You were very successful in your career. Walk us through your own personal journey and how Purposeful Pivot came to be.
So I was at one company for almost 20 years. I loved the company. I loved the people I worked with. The work was great. But I just got to a point where I'm like, gosh, there should be something more. And I'm not quite sure what it is. And it happens over time. It's a gradual thing. It's not like one day you're like, I'm done. It just all of a sudden the projects aren't as exciting and you're just not volunteering for things anymore. And just slow things start to happen. And that was happening to me. So I left that job thinking, oh, maybe I just need to try a different industry or a different function of marketing and that'll reinvigorate me. So I did. I left and I left on a high note. It was a year I was winning awards. It was all good. People were surprised, but I just knew there was something I had to do. And so I left and went to a whole nother industry. I was doing different kinds of marketing, went there for a little while, and it just still wasn't hitting the right marks for some reason. And I couldn't place it. And so finally, it took a lot of soul searching to realize maybe I just don't want to do this marketing role anymore. Maybe I don't want corporate anymore. And what do I want? So it just took a long time. I had to reimagine some old dreams I had, bring them back to life, and how I got to coaching. And then I thought, well, why don't I coach what I know? And it's going through this transition, which is very hard. It took me probably a year and a half. And if I could help other people get through it faster, that's what I decided to do.
That's awesome. You talk about going out on a high. You were winning a lot of awards. Some might say you were at the peak of your career. And for somebody like me from the outside, you look like an incredibly successful, high potential. So, what are some of the signs that leaders miss that might be cues that their high performers are getting burnout?
I think it's oftentimes maybe the enthusiasm wanes a little bit. They're not as exciting, or like me, they no longer volunteer for certain projects. And then I think you can see some of their work, their projects become a little more transactional instead of them being emotionally engaged in a project, it's just getting it done. And maybe the recognition for them lands a little different. They don't get excited over that anymore. So I think sometimes we miss that. And oftentimes it's either you do notice or you don't notice, but maybe they're updating their LinkedIn profile, and why are they doing that? So it's just little nuances that I think that you need to pay attention to, and oftentimes we don't because they are doing so well. And so you miss those signs. So it takes a little bit of practice to be on the lookout for that.
And what do you see in your experience that leaders get wrong when they're trying to retain those high performers?
I think they focus on discussions around maybe promotions or what's that next project or that next role, instead of talking to them about, are you growing here? Is this role what you want to do? We want to create more alignment for you, and maybe personally you're interested in something different within the company, and exploring them as a human instead of just keep climbing the ladder at the same thing that you've been doing, but just a different title, like a
Yeah.
senior or a VP title, and just keep going. So it's finding out really what the person wants more than just that role.
Well, and I think about that right now for a lot of organizations that are going through performance reviews, whether they're on a calendar year and they're doing mid-year performance reviews, or they're on a July or an October cycle and they're coming towards the end of that time to be evaluating performers. And I've carried something through my career that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. And that is that I always ask individuals, what are your three goals that you want to achieve this year? And most people think those are going to be corporate goals or company related goals. But I say only one of those needs to be something that you is part of your job that you're supposed to do. And that's what we pay you for. The second goal should be really a stretch goal that puts you outside your comfort zone, that you're really nervous about, that without tools or training or mentoring or help from me as your leader, you won't get there. So it's a collaborative goal. And the third one is equally as important, and that's just a personal goal. What's your personal goal this year? And you mentioned it in looking at those signs of leaders getting it wrong when they're trying to retain talent. Have you set or used similar kinds of metrics in your career to help coach people into finding what's meaningful for them?
Look at just when I talk with the clients that I'm talking to, I just want to see if at the end of our discussion or our time together, if they're moving forward and they're growing. So I don't have there so much numbers or quantitative goals, but it's more quality of their life. And are they happy? I look at that wheel of like, are you happy in your work? Are you happy with relationships? Are you happy with your health? And I really go through that and see and have people rate themselves. And if there's deficiencies, well, let's start to work on that. So it's not really a numbers goal. It's more of, are you aligned in all the different areas of your life? Because that's when you're going to be your happiest.
Right. And if you have balance in that wheel, I learned that long ago that you can't have all of it all the time, but you have to have balance in all of those
Right.
areas, which allows you not to get a flat tire along the life.
Right. Exactly.
You've coined something in your work there at Purposeful Pivot called the hidden cost of success. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like in somebody's career?
It's what we've been talking about. You get very successful, but then I think it's the gap between like your outward achievement and your inward fulfillment. And so there's a gap there. And it happens when high performers just continue succeeding. And on paper, everything looks great, but maybe internally they're quietly asking, is this it? Is there more? And I think that as you start to age, you really start to see the importance of creating more purpose in your life and making sure you're doing what makes sense for you. So I think that's the cost. If you stay still and you don't do anything, there's just misalignment, then you stay stuck and you start to drift in life. So if you don't take action and try to make these changes that bring yourself value, then you get stuck in that the cost of what success is at that point.
Yeah. When I worked in the community college system, we created a program called From Success to Significance,
Mm,
which is exactly what you're describing, right?
love
It's
that.
climbing the corporate ladder and winning all the awards and earning the positions and getting yourself to a place and then realizing what was the significance of all of that and what's my legacy that I'm leaving. Do you think that, think about that, and I think about people leaving companies to go create significance. Do you think somebody can reinvent themselves without leaving their company?
Oh, I definitely do. I think reinvention is just all about changing, learning and growing and finding new opportunities in it. That's the goal, right? Is to get them to find that within their organization instead of looking elsewhere for it. Especially if someone's been with you for a while, and they're a high performer, you don't want them finding that growth and development somewhere else when you can offer it for them. And so I think that you can absolutely reinvent yourself and do something different within an organization and find something new that excites you in the organization. And it may be completely different than what you're doing today, or it may be just a little bit different with some different opportunities for you that can make you whole again. So I think it's very doable.
So I've got two final questions for you. One is about burnout, because I think that is an attribute of a lot of high performers, right? Achieve burnout. How do you manage and help people through that burnout phase? And do you have any different tips or tricks for us?
I think oftentimes burnout comes from just burning it at all ends. You don't have balance in your life. And so I think it goes back to making sure you really look inside and look at all areas of your life and making sure that you're providing your attention to all the areas as much as possible. And I think at work, if you're experiencing the burnout there, I think it's having honest conversations with those around you and putting up some boundaries. Maybe you just keep saying yes to everything and you need to put some boundaries up and say no to some things that you just can't take on. So I think a lot of it is boundaries. And if you're doing the work that's fulfilling, you're not going to get burnt out as much as you would if you're doing something that no longer fulfills you. So I think it comes down to just boundaries and being aligned with the work that you enjoy.
And a lot of our listeners in this podcast are HR professionals or leaders of organizations. And so, if I were to ask you a final question, if an HR manager or director or CHRO thinks that one of their top performers is experiencing burnout or this lack of significance in their work, what's a conversation that they should be having with them?
I think oftentimes you wait and you do that just annual performance review. I would highly suggest you do more than that and have regular career alignment conversations and talk to your employees about what maybe their aspirations are in at your company and what growth looks like to them. You may assume that they want to develop in some areas or grow in some areas, and they may have completely different ideas of that, but you didn't take the time to learn that. So I think it's just having these conversations regularly, talking about alignment more than just performance, just bringing the human nature back into it because that's what we all are in organizations. So I think we forget that sometimes. So I think honest conversations for sure.
Love it. What a way to finish this. Kellie Grutko has been my guest here today on Success Isn't the Finish Line, Why Your Highest Performers May Be the Most at Risk. Kellie, thank you so much for spending your time and your wisdom with me and with our listeners. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All righty. Thank you all. Join us again on another edition of Workforce Rewired. And if you need anything in the meantime, please call us at Catapult. We're here to help. Thanks so much, Kellie.
Thank you.